So key to solving quadratic equations. First of all, you're going to see the x squared. That's going to tell you it's a quadratic equation. And when you see an x squared in the quadratic equation, the majority of the time, you're going to bring everything over to one side and make it equal to 0. So you can use the zero product property. Right now, it's not equal to 0, so I will add 30x to both sides. That will give me 3x squared plus 30x plus 75 equals 0. And then we need to change this to multiplying in order to figure it out. Because this one, you could try to guess and check, but to find both answers may take some time. Now for factoring this one, if you went right away to these brackets, you're going to make your life a little bit more difficult. Because if you look at it, and always take the time to look at it first, you'll see that there's a greatest common factor. What could I take out of 3, 30, and 75? A 3. So if I do that to begin with, I change my trinomial into numbers that are much easier to factor. And now I can put my brackets there. Split it up here. Has to be x and x, two numbers. Multiply to 25, so the outside and inside make 10. 5 and 5. Both will be positive. So when I look at my first one, well, actually there's 3 sets of multiplication here. There's a multiplication there and a multiplication there. We technically could split it up here. Our first one's a 3. Is there anything that would make 3 0? No, 3 is always 3. So it can never equal 0. Can x plus 5 ever equal 0? Yes, when x is negative 5. Can x plus 5 ever equal 0? It's exactly the same, right? This question only has one answer. You'll learn next year or next semester, depending on when you're taking grade 12, that we would say that the answer is x equals negative 5, and it has a multiplicity of 2. We'll say that because the answer came up twice. But there's only one answer, x is equal to negative 5. We'll find out sometimes with quadratic equations, there's 2 answers like we had in our first examples. Sometimes there's only one answer, and there's going to be some questions that there'll be no answers for. And we'll see what those ones look like as well. So for part B, again, at this moment, we can't solve it because it's not equal to 0. We see the x squared, so we will make one side equal to 0. I'm going to add 20x to both sides. Because I need a side equal to 0 in order to use the zero product property. I'm going to make a very common mistake in this question. I'm going to do the whole thing, make a very common mistake that students make that loses a half a mark. I want you to look for it. You won't have to, you can copy it down exactly because you won't have to change much that it would ruin your notes in your thing. But I want to see if you can see the mistake that is made here. Okay? Again, we're going to factor. Now I only have 2 terms. I'm going to look for greatest common factor first. I can divide both 5 and 20 by 5. And they also have an x in common. So I can pull out a 5 and an x, and I'd be left with x plus 4. Here's our multiplication, right? Our multiplication's right there. I split it right there. What would make the first one equal to 0? 5 times 0. So x could be 0. The second one, x could be negative 4. These are 2 answers. Both those answers are correct. And now the question is, I'm done. Where did I lose my half a mark? Mac? I forgot to make an equal 0 right here. You get so excited about factoring that you forget the equal 0. You get your answers. You're like, yeah, I got the answer. You check the back of the book. Your answers are right. Okay. Most common mistake is when factoring to forget the equal 0. With an equal sign, this is an equation. That means this needs to be an equation. And when we solve it, we make two different equations, and that's okay. But they need to be equations all the way throughout. So it's a very common mistake to forget that equal sign. Questions for this one, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 18. 18 I'll put a star beside because it is a little bit more difficult and will push you to think. If you don't get 18, don't worry too much about it. But there are some shortcuts in 18, so if you try 18, see if you can see the shortcut. If not, you can do it the long way. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of time to work on factoring because this is a very important skill.